come after third-party cookies will die, and what does it mean to publishers? How can publishers take advantage of it? Let me first introduce ourselves. My name is Matěj Novák. I am the CEO of Adpicker, and I have a long story behind me working for publishers. I used to head the Czech Publisher Exchange, Publisher Co-op, dedicated to selling inventory through RTB. And basically our mission in CPEX was to create decent competition to the big guys like Google or Facebook. And after that, I moved to Adpicker, basically with the same mission, enabling publishers to compete with the tech giants, but now offering machine learning technologies for the publishers to be able to leverage their first-party data. And I will do an introduction about the situation we are in and where we're heading, what the options are. And together with me, we have David Vopelka, who will lead you through the second part of our webinar. So, hello, David.
Hello, Matěj. Thanks a lot. Hello, everyone. And I'm David. I'm actually product manager, and I'm helping clients to help them build their own machine learning ecosystems where they can leverage in more efficient way their first-party data. So just maybe before we jump to the topic, a little bit of background about who we are. DataSentics. We are a company dedicated to help other companies get the best out of their data. And actually, to do this, we believe that the right way is to use machine learning and AI. And we believe that nowadays, any company in the world can build own machine learning solutions and AI-driven solutions. And we are helping the companies create this competence and help them build it. So in order to be successful, we are more than 90 people at the moment. Most of it are the machine learning experts, but we also have very strong cloud engineering expertise, even campaign management expertise, and of course we have product owners like me and Matěj.
So that was a short intro, and let's jump right into our topic. As you all have probably noticed, the EdTech landscape is rapidly changing, and it's forming new shapes, like currently similar to what's happening on islands. So how does the situation look like now? Until maybe previous year, the entire ecosystem of ed technologies was built on third-party cookies. So without third-party cookies, you weren't able to do frequency capping across publishers and websites. You were not able to measure attribution. Also, the ad verification technologies are based on third-party cookies. Audience targeting is based solely on third-party cookies. Retargeting is based on third-party cookies, and also many of the campaign optimization techniques are based on third-party cookies. After Firefox and Safari ceased to support third-party cookies, or let's say introduce their privacy protection techniques, and after Chrome announced the deprecation of third-party cookies that is scheduled for next year, this situation is changing a lot and will change dramatically after Chrome kills the third-party cookies entirely. And we want to focus on one of the aspects of third-party cookies and discuss how they can be replaced and what can publishers do to actually get advantage of this situation. And it's audience targeting. This situation will change dramatically within the next year, but today already there is a lot of traffic where the third-party cookies are not present. So I took the data from my previous job, where about 30% of all traffic comes either from Safari or from Firefox, that are limiting the third-party cookies, but also not in all requests in Chrome the third-party cookies are present. So if we have a look to the data of the Ozone project, which is a British publisher co-op, they see that up to 50% of all ad requests are coming without the third-party cookies. So the situation today is already in the state where we need to address this challenge. On the other hand, the third-party cookies, the end of third-party cookies doesn't only mean a challenge or issue for the edtech industry. We believe that there is also a huge opportunity for publishers when the third-party cookies disappear. Because today, with third-party cookies, basically all the edtech players are able to track users across the internet, across all the websites, because they can place the cookies to users. The cookies are synchronized, and whenever the edtech players track an impression on a page, or whenever even the bit requests come through the OpenRTB pipes, the edtech is able to track the user across the entire open web, which is being addressed heavily by privacy defenders, and which is actually the issue why the third-party cookies are being abandoned. When there are no third-party cookies, the ability to track users across the internet will be basically very limited, and this can get the control back to the publishers, because the publishers will be those who are able to work with the users. And we believe this is right, because the publishers have many advantages that they can leverage now. They understand their content because they are producing it. They have the direct relationship with their readers, with the users, and they do know them. And the publishers are also those who are responsible to their readers, because all the players that are attached to the open edtech ecosystem, they do not have the responsibility, they do not have the relationship. So we believe this is the opportunity for publishers to take advantage and take control when the third-party cookies disappear, and when basically all the edtech players will lose or will have a limited option to track the user across the internet. So what are the solutions that publishers have now to address the issue of not having third-party cookies? When we have a look to all traffic that comes to a publisher website, we can use several technologies to make the traffic addressable. For some users, we can use other IDs than those that are based on third-party cookies. Let's call them next-generation IDs. These IDs will for sure not cover the entire traffic, so there will be a lot of traffic where we still can use contextual targeting or content targeting. However, even the content targeting is not suitable for all types of content. For example, on a homepage of a big online portal, the content targeting is very limited, because the homepages is very general, and all different kinds of people come there. And also there is a proposal of Google for a bunch of technologies that they call privacy sandbox, and for user targeting, those that are called FLOC and FLETCH are the most relevant. So these are basically the options that publishers do have to address the challenge connected with disappearing of third-party cookies. About the next generation IDs, this approach is very similar, or is basically trying to restore the state that we have now. So instead of using third-party cookies, we will use some other identifier. If we use this approach, it means that there is not much to change. So we will still have some identifiers. We can still do basically all the stuff we were used to doing with the old third-party IDs. And in some aspects, the next generation IDs can even be better than the third-party cookies, because the third-party cookies were not too persistent. They were very often deleted or blocked even in the past. They lacked the cross-device, which also means cross-browser targeting options, and so on and so on. On the other hand, in some aspects, these next generation IDs can be seen as kind of going against the stream, because they still can be seen as violating privacy in a similar way as the third-party cookies are. They will definitely not be supported by all vendors. Namely, Google says that this is not the way they want to go, and they will not support any of the next generation IDs. And of course, these IDs won't be available for all the traffic, or their use for some traffic will be very limiting. If we take a look a bit deeper to what the next generation IDs means, we can see that there are three types of them. The first one is deterministic IDs or logins. The other is probabilistic universal IDs that are basically trying to identify the user by signals of behavior or some technical signals. And there are also cookies that are stored in the first-party ID, IDs that are stored in the first-party cookie, that are a little bit more persistent than the third-party cookies that will soon be blocked entirely. So let's have a look to all of them. The deterministic IDs basically are or mean that we are using logins. So whenever the user logs in, we use the login. It could be email, it could be phone number, it could be whatever. And in some form, we use this to identify the user cross sessions, cross sites, cross browsers. Of course, none of those IDs that are on the market is using the email itself. It's always somehow hashed or hashed and encrypted. An example of this approach is the Universal ID 2.0, but there are more players that basically make use of the deterministic IDs. There are huge advantages of using deterministic IDs. The biggest problem is that such an ID is very persistent, because the email address of a person is very persistent and can be used cross-site and cross-device. Also, use of the deterministic IDs enables publishers to basically synchronize with advertisers' databases or CRMs. So publishers can, for example, offer targeting similar users as those who are already customers of an advertiser. There are also some disadvantages of this approach. The most obvious is that the deterministic IDs are only available when the users log in, and there will probably never be, or for most websites, there will never be all users logged in. Also, for example, on social networks, there is most of the users that do log in, but we can hardly expect that whenever a user is reading news, all of them will log in. So the deterministic IDs are great, but only can be used for a small proportion of users. It could be 15%, it could be 30%. For some websites, it will only be 5%. And also, these IDs can be considered as not too privacy friendly because, of course, everybody is using logins only with users' consent, but still the concept of broadcasting hashed email addresses into the entire world doesn't sound like the direction all the privacy initiatives are currently going. Besides deterministic IDs, you can use probabilistic IDs, which basically means that the ID provider is trying to identify the user by behavior or by some other signals that can be acquired about the user. So what is the advantage is that you can identify much higher portion of traffic than with deterministic IDs, because the users simply do not have to log in order for the publisher or other player to be able to use this probabilistic ID. And also they are available for cross-site identification. The disadvantages are that they are never 100% accurate, but they can be, I believe, enough accurate for all the ad targeting purposes. They also will not be available for all the traffic, and they can cause the same questions as the deterministic IDs, which means they cannot be, or they may be considered as not 100% privacy safe. Also, although all the probabilistic identity providers will say they are not doing fingerprinting, they may be considered close to fingerprinting, which is a technology that is that doesn't have a very good reputation, because it is usually not entirely transparent to the user what these technologies do, how do they work. The last group of the next generation IDs are the first-party cookie-based IDs. First-party cookie-based ID means simply that instead of using the ID in the third-party context, we are generating a random ID and putting into the first party. This concept has got the advantage that such an ID can cover a wide range of traffic. Basically, almost all the online users can get a first-party ID, and they are very easy to implement. So definitely first-party IDs are the way to go, and they are the more useful the larger website with more loyal users with it. So if you have a website with a small traffic where your traffic is mostly from search engines, the people come, for example, read the recipe and leave for under 3 months, first-party IDs will not help you that much. If it's a news site with very loyal users that come every day and read 10 articles, then the first-party IDs can be of very high value for the publisher. The disadvantages are obviously first-party cookies mean there is no cross-site identification available. So the ID is always unique per one website. So, for example, frequency capping cannot work cross sites, And also the first-party cookies can be restricted by browsers, also not that heavily as third-party cookies. So in order to make this more interactive, I wanted to ask you whether you are already using some of these IDs. So you should see a questionnaire now, and please check what you're using. Okay, so we can see that there are some publishers using deterministic IDs. Okay, so the logins and first-party cookie IDs seem to be the most widespread. Also, okay, and most of the audience doesn't use any next generation IDs. Okay. So hopefully this was useful for you, especially for those who are clicking that they are not using these IDs yet, because I believe for every publisher it makes a lot of sense to start using some IDs and start building this capability. Okay, and there is a question whether first-party cookies to include registered and anonymous users. The first-party cookie can store the ID even for anonymous user. It can be fully anonymous. You can, of course, store some form of the deterministic ID in the first-party cookie too, but the typical use would be for anonymous users. Okay, let's continue with the presentation. The other option that is available to address the end of third-party cookies is contextual targeting. This is something that was here a long time ago. It's been used before audience targeting, and the advantage is that it's 100% privacy compliant. You don't need to track the user. You don't need to know anything about the user in order to do contextual targeting. And it is not, and probably will never be, restricted on the browser side, or it will never be under fire from the privacy protection offices. However, the performance may not be as high as the performance of audience targeting for the advertisers, which means less revenues for publishers. It also could be difficult to implement it properly, which means not just focusing on a few keywords, but do proper content targeting. And of course, it will not be available for all content. If you imagine, again, the homepage of a large portal, probably you will not be able to target contextually because the content is just too wide. So again, a question from us: Are you using, as publishers, are you using the contextual targeting? And we still have the old question. Yes, we have. Now we have the right. So it seems that the, let's say, kind of old school keyword-based targeting is still the prevailing. Also, some of you are also using something more advanced. Okay, we will speak about more advanced content or contextual targeting later. So thanks for your input, and let's go forward. Oh no, sorry. Switching back to the presentation. The last technology we can use to replace the third-party cookie is what Google has proposed as privacy sandbox, and namely the part that is called FLOC, or Federated Learning of Cohorts, where Google suggests that the browser will create anonymous cohorts of users basically group users with similar online behavior into groups, into cohorts. And there is going to be API in the browser that will reveal the cohort user belongs in. So basically the browser will give you an ID of the cohort that the user belongs in. This can be very useful for behavior targeting because the cohort will basically mean a segment the user belongs into it. However, there are few disadvantages and uncertainties about this. So one disadvantage is publishers have no control about it. It also could cause data leakage, because imagine you are a publisher with a very relevant and valuable audience, let's say the people who are checking stock prices, and the fact that they often visit your site will be somehow printed into the cohort that they belong to. So everybody else in the world will be able to identify the users that are actually your gold. So this can cause some publishers to disable the FLOC on their websites. Also, the FLOC could be questionable from the privacy perspective, because the browser reveals some information about the user behavior to basically the entire world. And again, this will not be available for all users, because some browser makers will not implement this, and also probably not all of the users will consent to doing this. So once we saw the options we have, the question is which one to pick, and the answer is obvious. We don't know what the market will look like in a year or two. So what I would suggest is start testing all the stuff that is available, all the various IDs. Start playing with contextual targeting, and when it's available, because the FLOCs are not Google put them into beta, but it's only available outside of Europe. So once it comes to Europe, try make some use out of it. Now to the topic we will be discussing now: how can machine learning help to publishers to basically take advantage of all these mentioned technologies. First, publishers are the ones who have data, who has first-party data. So using machine learning, you can create data about user behavior, and you can use the next generation ID for it. You can create custom machine learning models to create audiences, to segment your visitors, and then use this in the ad tech to target ads, or use it to personalize content. It's not okay. Let's say it is a rocket science, but we are in 21st century, so it's something that is very easily available now. And it can bring the advantage to publishers to be able to offer audience targeting after the third-party cookies will end, and after the third-party vendors like the DMPs or DSPs who or agencies who do the audience segmentation now, they will not be able to do it. So this is a huge advantage the publishers can use. About the contextual targeting, in the old times, there was a guy usually doing the PPC campaigns who selected the keywords, put them into the campaign, and tried what works and what doesn't. Now we have moved, so basically we can analyze the behavior of people. We can, for example, analyze the behavior of people who are buying sneakers on advertiser side, and we can create a machine learning model that basically reveals the content these people who are the sneaker buyers tend to visit. and we don't have to guess what keywords could be relevant and what content could be relevant for these people. We just let the machine to do this job and to find the proper targeting for this group. Okay, we have a question in the chat. Thanks for the question. The question is, how long is the cohort longevity? Is it 1 week? Yeah, the Google's proposal says that they will update the cohort user belongs to once per week. So if the user behavior will change, for example, the user will start a research and start searching for a new bike, the cohort the user belongs into should change accordingly. So probably the user will fall into another cohort because the online behavior of the user has changed. Of course, the publishers can take advantage of it and not only work with the cohort the user belongs now, but if they have the ID of the user, they can also work with the history of cohort the user did belong into. Okay, and on the technologies you need to implement anything of it, David will speak about it in a few minutes, so I will skip this question. Okay, the last one, privacy sandbox. How can we make advantage of it? So obviously the first part is to understand what the cohorts mean, to be able to analyze how do they correspond to the user segments. We know what is the behavior of that cohorts, and then we can use to target them. And of course, the cohort ID can be a very useful input for the machine learning models. So we not only know how the user behaves on our websites, but we also can know something about the user behavior on the rest of the internet because we know the cohort that the user belongs into. So once we have all this data, once we are able to do the proper segmentation, once we are able to work with the content smartly, we can use it in many ways as publishers. So we can monetize that through the ad server. We can target ads to specific audiences or custom content. We can also set up deals in SSPs and offer private deals. As long as there are still some third-party cookies, or as soon as the data exchanges will be able to work with something else, we can also sell the data through, or the audiences through data exchanges. And of course, we can use all this to personalized websites in order to either increase the engagement of the visitors, or to, for example, increase the conversion of subscribers, because if we are able to segment users properly, we can then increase the subscription rates on the websites. So I'm heading towards the end of my part. So to sum up, I believe that there is one of the biggest changes in the edtech landscape that is already here for those 30% of users, but will come the next year for the rest. And I believe that there are this earthquake, this new shape of the landscape brings opportunities for the publisher to take control and to leverage their first-party data. And I believe that machine learning can help a lot to leverage this to get as much of it as possible. So what should you do now? First, I believe every publisher should think about their ID strategy and start experimenting with all the types of IDs and many publishers are motivating the users now very strongly to log in, but also for those that are not logged in, there are options. It's important in order to be able to utilize the data. It's important to build a data lake or data storage to be able to work with the data and to get them into a unified form. And after that, you can use the machine learning that is, which is basically today a technology that is very available to make sense of the data, because having like gigabytes of data daily doesn't bring any value. Being able to shape audiences, being able to extract relevant content out of this data makes a lot of sense and can be then activated through ad technologies. And this is basically what we are doing with Adpicker, because we believe it's important for the publisher to have this ability, which means to have the proper technologies and also to have the competencies in-house, which is basically where we can help. And at the end of my part, I wanted to ask whether you are already using some machine learning technologies, whether you are already making the advantage of your first-party publisher data. So that's my last question. Okay, it looks like we could have good discussion, because there are publishers who are already doing that. So maybe after the webinar, we can connect and talk and share experiences. Or because there are more attendees in the audience who have the data, but say they are not using machine learning to harvest them. Maybe we can also have a conversation about how can you move forward. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and I'm now passing the word to my colleague David, who will tell you more about what it means in concrete examples and how you can work with your publisher first-party data.
Thanks a lot, Matěj. So I would like to share with you, let's say, the typical evolution we see in the market and the typical situation you might be familiar with. So when we are yeah, I hear some reverb. Matěj, maybe if you could mute yourself, please. Thanks. So when we are talking to the publishers, we often see this situation that there's a lot of data all over the place. The publishers has interesting data in their ad servers, in their website analytical tools, but also in the content management systems and maybe in some kind of CRM systems where you have the data about the people who are already subscribed, who are already registered. But we do not see that often that publishers are able to bring the data into one place and create some value out of it. So first, let me try to walk you through the journey. So first thing is what data we are actually talking about. So one key data set that the publisher has is the data from website behavior and maybe even app behavior in case the publisher has some kind of app. And that data looks basically like this. It's just rows with every single interaction, which page view, which action was taken on which particular part of the website, and it's just like huge logs of the data. So to get some information out of the data, it is not a good idea to try to look at the data by human eye. So another data source, which is an interesting one, is the data from ad servers. And here you can, for example, see who
saw your ads. That's very similar to the page view, but you can see also who clicked the particular ad and who clicked the particular ad of which brand, of which advertiser, of which media agency. So you can see and derive quite interesting information that, hey, maybe this article is having ads that are clicked by the people, and the ads are about financial products. So maybe all those people are interested in financial products as such. So you can derive this kind of information just from the ad server data. And then another data set, important data set, is the transactional data. So about the users who are subscribing, who are just registering at your websites. You can have when they did it, when they lapsed, when they churned, when they upgraded to the paid one, when they downgraded then to the non-paid one, and so on. So you have again these like transactions when the people did such thing. So first step is to bring all those interesting data into one place. So as we have seen, most of you already are having some kind of data lake in a place in your company. That's great. So that's definitely like first step to do. So and it's also kind of our recommendation that yeah, you should first bring the data into one place, and then you need to connect the data, because every single data source is using different IDs. So you need to first connect the data and create one, let's say, unified model across all these channels. So what we typically help with is to set up it in the cloud infrastructure that belongs to you. So the data are still under your control. No ad tech vendor is doing something with the data unless you would allow them to. So it's really still in your control, and it's like your publisher's data platform, so to say. And then before we move to the what next, let me try to ask you a question. So let's try. And I would like to ask you, how big actually is your internal data teams? Because we often see different situations. So if you could, thanks a lot. Let's see, you are already responding. Yes. Great. So we already have a couple of people, but it's not like a huge teams like in some kind of, yeah, Facebook probably has hundreds of people. You have up to 5. That's good start, but yeah, perfect. So yeah, some of you actually have also own AI and machine learning teams. That's great. So let me get back to the presentation. So the next step now is to, as I mentioned, connect the data, and we recommend to connect them in a shape that it forms basically some kind of user journeys, that for every single ID, whether it's anonymous or registered, you are forming, based on all the data sources, basically his journey. So it can be represented by keywords, as you can see here, but it can be represented by many other things like frequency of visits, average time spent in last 7 days, and like many things you can even think of. And once you have this connected in this shape, then you can start applying some advanced analytical approaches to get some value out of the data. So here you can see one of our pattern that just to illustrate, as you can see here on the left, we have like the customer journeys, and we can see that these 4 customers, they are all visiting some football content, and some of them are visiting car content, and some of them fashion content. But the thing is that not everyone who touched football content is actually interested in football, because it's kind of standard behavior of the whole population. So what is important here, and is that you always take it in a relation. So if someone is touching football 4 out of 4 occasions, then and this is not the standard behavior of the population, then his like affinity or like his strength of the interest is there. Similar goes with the fashion for the customer 125, and similar goes for the customer 123 for the cars. But just by this, let's say, simple logic, you can fully automate the segmentation, and then you can try to derive all those different things about geographic, about life stages of the people, about lifestyles, about their interests, about their, let's say, digital maturity, whatever the advertiser wants to target. So often we see demand for, let's say, digital behavioral things, for, say, some funnel stages whether someone is in market for a specific product, or some kind of profile, like whether someone is high income or low income, and whether someone has some kind of purchasing, whether he's buying a house, and so on. So there is like a lot of things you can derive using this, like this approach. Yeah, in reality, it's a little bit more complicated. It's much more statistics behind it, but in a nutshell, this is one of the key approaches to automate all this. Is the, let's say, that's the tricky part, but we can help with that. And as you can see, we already can provide all these let's say, algorithms out of the box for you, so you don't need to waste your resources in trying to develop the same thing internally. So we often are in a situation where we just give it to you and we accelerate you, and you don't lose time in fighting Google and Facebook. So that's this. And now let's try another question. And let me yeah. What about the audiences? If you are creating audiences, how many of them you are creating by clicking and defining some business rules, like someone who 5 times visited a football page is really interested in football? How many times you are doing this? Or are you even doing that, or you're doing it in a more advanced way? Great. So I can see that some of yours are already using models, which is great. And some of you are actually in the situation we often see, that you have some rules like that, but it evolved into quite a mess in your DMPs, and no one is able to manage it anymore. Okay, so thanks a lot for the response. So what else you can do? So let's imagine you have now the segmented people by the interest, life stages, and so on. But it's not the end. You can do even more. So let's imagine you have a customer who is selling, I don't know, cars. So he wants to attract people who are interested in cars, in buying a car. So you, for example, take a very small portion of the people that somehow shown their interest in buying a car. They, for example, read some specific article, 5 things what to consider when buying a car. And you take just those, like, I don't know, thousands of users, and then you use machine learning to learn from the data what are the things that are different for those users compared to the rest of the population, leveraging all the segmentation we have been showing. And the data will basically tell you, look, the people who are reading this article, they are different because they are much more interested in football. They are much more using iPhone device. They are much more reading the article in the night. They are doing this and that, and like tens and hundreds of things. The machine learning will uncover it for you, so you don't need to like do some assumptions. And now you have learned the rules. So the natural next step is to apply the rules for everybody in your data. So it's called like scoring, or in advertising, it's often called like doing a lookalike. But effectively, you take every single customer and you look at his data, and you try to calculate some kind of score. How much similar he is to the ones that you taken as a seed audience. And by this, you can calculate the score for everyone in a data set. So you can imagine, you can do it for many things, like people who are buying car, people who are moving to a new flat, people who are, I don't know, traveling a lot, people who are seeking flights, and so on. So again, sky's the limit. Yeah, and I see a couple of questions. So do these outputs link to Google Ad Manager and DMP? Yes, it's a little bit spoiler, but yeah, it again ends in your existing advertising technologies to help you execute it. So so that's one thing. Let's try another question, and I promise that's the last one for today. So last question is whether you are actually able to extrapolate some of the information about registered users, typically age of the registered user, some socio-demographics, something you know about only the registered, and you are trying to extrapolate it to the anonymous ones. Perfect. So yeah, you can see it's, yeah, some of you are doing it with your internal team, some of you are trying to use DMP for it but struggling, and yeah, most of you are doing it with your internal data teams. Great, thanks a lot for the answers. So let's get back to the presentation. So if you do all this, let's say, machine learning and then extrapolation of the information to the entire base, you end up with this crazy picture, and it's basically the output which is under the hood of everything. So you can see that every single row is the ID, and every single column is the thing you know about the ID, and it's all based on, let's say, probabilistic manner. Yeah. So of course, for some you know it for sure, they declared, but for many other IDs you have it just with some kind of probability or accuracy. So it's just this huge matrix with millions of users and hundreds and thousands of attributes that is underneath everything. So once you have this, you can actually, if you go back to this diagram, now you have all the ID segmented. So what you can do next is that you use it to actually to sell it to some advertisers or media agencies for some extra charge. And how to do it? There are many ways, and one of the nice way we see is that the media agency comes and they ask, do you have some audience for people who are buying cars? You can say yes, and the people are this kind of people. So you are not just giving them the audience, but you are giving them the entire profile of the people, because you can use the segmentation, which I have just shown to you, to explain what are other differences of these people. They are much more likely to like a football. They are much younger. They are having this kind of income, and even more importantly, that goes back to the contextual targeting, is that those are the pages that they are visiting much more often than the rest of the population. So it links back to the contextual targeting, because by this segmentation you can learn where are the places that people who are buying a car are actually visiting more than the others. So that's the places you should contextually target, because that's the places where you are much more likely to hit the people in this situation. So the loop closes, as I mentioned. So at the end, you end up by automatically extracting the data either from advertising technologies, from the backend. You extract the data from your content management system, so you can enrich the journeys even more by some semantical algorithms. You can enrich the data by the transactions and information about the registered users. Then you run it through the AI-driven algorithms, so there is no clicking around, it's just driven by the model. And then you have this user interface to orchestrate which audience, for to which campaign, to which ad tech you should, to which campaign you should plug in. And everything is automated. And what is the best is that you have full control, you have full transparency. Everything is in your cloud, and you can be sure that no one else in the market is leveraging your data without you having a revenue share on it. So that's one thing. And the story goes on, actually. And once you will have this in place, it enables you to basically compete with the Google and Facebook even more, because Google and Facebook are currently having a little bit competitive edge over you, because they allow the advertisers to upload their CRM base, create a lookalikes there, and target using that. Publishers are often not able to provide such service, which causes the advertisers redirect the money to the Facebook and Google, and you basically lose revenue. But now, once you have built the solution like this, now you can offer the exactly same service. So you can hash the advertisers or the brand's CRM bases, you can hash yours, you can match it, and you can use it to create the lookalikes, because you already have the data platform in place. So it enables you to bring up and onboard first-party data of the brands to create even more tailored, even more performing campaigns. So that's the answer, technical answer to this market situation, at least as we see it. Of course, we are happy to hear any of your thoughts, whether you see it differently, whether you see it the same way. But yeah, this is how we see it. This is how our clients see it. And in case you are interested in discussing any part of this with us, we are happy to chat anytime. So yeah, the closing message is basically let's fight walled gardens together, because we kind of believe in DataSentics that world shouldn't be controlled by Google and Facebook, and but we have the AI competence like Facebook and Google, so we can join forces and fight them together much better. And we have platform ready, we have pre-built audiences ready, we have a little bit of knowledge, and yeah, if we join forces, we believe we can be successful. So yeah, I see the question, is this similar to CDP? Yes, but it's much more better, I would say, because CDP is typically not allowing your internal data team to develop their own models, or not at least in a very convenient way for a data scientist. We do it for also the data people. So it's fully open. You can of course do a little bit clicking, but you can go to the code, you can create your own algorithm, which CDP often doesn't allow. And also CDPs are hosted in, let's say, third-party cloud. You are giving them the data, you never know. Yeah, so yeah, in some sense it covers the CDP. So if you go this direction, you probably don't need CDP at all. I hope I answered the question. Perfect. So feel free to write. Yeah, we have another one. So in this solution, we have transparency of the machine learning rules and the access to data. Yes, exactly. That's what we believe is essential for the success. Yeah. So if the black box solutions, they were always there, and most of the technologies are kind of black box, and that's not the answer. So we do it in a really transparent way. We help your team, your company to build the competence. We just give you our products. We just give you our knowledge and guidance on the way. But at the end of the day, it's up to build it in your company, so you can really turn the data into your unique selling proposition. Otherwise, it's just another tool. So we don't want to provide another tools. We want to help publishers to survive.